You want to play a build that is extremely strong throughout all stages of the game, has insane damage scaling and will be unkillable later on, then this is the video for you. In this build guide, you will find every piece of information that you need to play Marksman Gunner Drone. So let's get right into the pros and cons of the build so you can decide if it's something that you want to invest your time in and if it's something that you would enjoy. So for the pros, it's has a very high DPS. My character right now has about 10 trillion DPS, which is way more than you will need for anything in the entire game. You will be able to one-shot even like the most difficult boss on the highest difficulty with 4-player scaling. You will still one-shot that. So yeah, the DPS is absolutely cracked. The build is also very tanky. It has good clear speed. The playstyle is very chill. It's basically an auto bomber playstyle if you're familiar with that. So you just run around and your drone kills everything for you. You don't need to activate or use any skills besides self buffs to increase your damage or to give you movement speed, but you're not actively attacking. Basically everything just dies as you walk around. Yeah, one of the biggest strengths of this build as well is it's very cheap to get going. Even with low budget, you can get into Inferno easily. And yeah, so it's very cheap and very strong. For the cons, honestly, there aren't many. But one of the cons is definitely you aren't like giga tanky until you can make like endgame investments and get like really good gear. You're not squishy. I wouldn't say you're squishy, but you're definitely not giga tanky before that point. Another con is that I heard some people saying that they find the playstyle boring, but that's just if you don't like an auto bomber playstyle, this build is not for you. Personally, I think the playstyle is great, but some people don't like it. So how the build works is you basically just activate your drone, and then you will have this drone that hovers around you, and as you saw in the intro clips, as soon as there are enemies in range, the drone will start firing and it will just kill everything that's on your screen. And then if you wanna do bosses and have more DPS for bosses, you can also put some turrets down. These will inflict debuffs on your enemies, or this circle from this turret will buff yourself, and that will pump up your damage even more. If you're mapping, of course, you press your potions for additional buffs. And you can also use this buff, which gives you just a lot of movement speed, so you move around the map really fast. And then you also have this buff, Master Mechanic, which just gives you like a huge damage boost as well, so you can use that on bosses as well, if you need a DPS. And yeah, so let's get into the skills, how it works. This is my skill tree, how I have it set up currently. We are, of course, maxing out Gunner Drone, which is our main DPS spell. And we are also maxing its synergies, Master Mechanic, Frag Grenade, and the last synergy we just put whatever leftover points we have in, because it's not that important. What's important is to max out Turret Mastery, because it just gives you a lot of attack speed and damage for your sentries, for your drones basically. And we put 1 point into agility just for the movement speed buff, 1 point into vault to get there, but also you can use the vault to get over terrain. And then we also put 1 point in each of these turrets, because like I said, they will be used to further increase our single target damage, but we'll get into that in a second when we go into the Subskilltrees. But let's start with the most important Subskilltree of them all, Gunner Drone. This is what I would use. Basically how it works is the Gunner Drone skill summons a lot of small drones that shoot enemies. But with this drone right here, Mecha, you convert all your mini drones into a big drone, and the big drone gains more damage based on how many mini drones you would have. Having more drones is actually a very big damage multiplier for this build. That's why you want to max out Multitude, because it gives you increased summon amount, and increased summon amount it translates to more damage. And you also want more projectiles, because the projectiles actually shotgun in this game. So it's gonna give you more AoE and more clear for mapping, but it's also gonna give you more single target, because if your drone is close to the boss, for example, then all the projectile will hit at once, and that's just gonna like skyrocket your damage by a lot. Now for Rocket Turret, we just use this as a debuff for Arcane Break. Basically, every other node, it doesn't really matter too much. You can just put whatever you want, basically, but yeah, just some AoE or more projectiles, whatever you want, basically. It's just there to be a debuff tool to inflict Arcane Break, because this is the only source of Arcane Break you get in the build. So yeah, that's another damage multiplier for you. Just put the turret down on a boss, it will hit the boss, inflict Arcane Break, and you get more damage. Same thing for Cannon Turret, that's just a debuffing tool. But here we are looking for Weakening Blast, which increases damage taken by 105% with 3 points, which is huge. So that's just another tool for bosses to get even more DPS. And then our next buffing tool is Beacon. We just have 1 point in here. And Beacon is basically what you put down on the ground. I'll show you. It's this one, and whenever you stay in this circle, then the beacon will give you increased arcane damage, for me 230%, and mana replenish, which we don't care about, but the arcane damage is pretty nice, so it's just even more damage for single targets if you need it. When you get to the endgame setup, you will not need any of these. It's basically just a novelty to watch how high you can get on the dummy DPS. But even without any buffs on this build, I one-shot any boss in the game. It literally doesn't matter if it's what boss it is or how high it's scaled by like any difficulty modifiers that you can have. Everything is one-shot. But before that point, these are very nice to just boost your single target DPS and make you be able to like one-shot bosses, essentially. We also have 1 point in critical accuracy. Now this node gives you critical damage and attack rating. You might wonder, okay, why do I need that on a drone build? Basically, in this game, attack rating only works for attacks, but drone is a spell. As you can see, it has the cast, sentry, active, and spell tag. So it doesn't benefit from attack rating. The same for crit damage. Crit damage only works on attack, so not spells. So you might ask yourself, why are we taking this node? Basically, you only need that in the endgame setup if you have Atos Diamond Hands, because this will basically allow you to get spell crit. If you don't have this item, don't worry about it. You can just save 1 point here and put it into Homing Missile for the synergy. For Bolt, I don't really use the skill, to be honest, because I'm already at a point where I have like a lot of movement speed, so I don't need the extra mobility. The important note on this is High Leap. That allows you to jump over walls and stuff like that. Everything else, you can just put whatever you like length, for example, just quality of life, so you can move around quicker. But yeah, you can experiment with this and see what you like. Yeah, I'm not sure if I have this min-maxed, because like I said, with my setup, I don't really need it. And you only use this for the movement anyways. So I have 6 leftover points, but I can't really care for any of the damage nodes or something like that. This is what works for me. So you want as many points in intelligence as possible. If you're just like starting out and you're farming Hell 5 maybe, then I would say around 4000 HP is what felt comfortable to me. but you can always adjust to your own likes and adjust to how tanky you want to feel. Let's get into the stats that you will need to scale this build and scale its damage. First of all, we have intelligence. This scales your damage just by the way your skill works. As you can see down there, there's the line intelligence, 7.15% arcane damage per point. So that just scales your damage. Also later on, you will get some items that scale your magic skill damage by how much intelligence you have. So for example, this amulet says 20% intelligence is converted to magic skill damage, and magic skill damage is obviously just more damage for your skill, so that's another stat that you want. That's just another reason to get more intelligence, because you also get magic skill damage. Other than that, you want levels to all skills, because that's just gonna give you more levels to your gunner drone, more levels, more damage. It's also gonna give you more levels to all your buffs and everything else. You want arcane skills, again, to scale your gunner drone. Same goes for sentry skills. Basically any tag that this skill has. It has arcane, it has sentry, it has spell, so anything that scales those levels you want, just to up your damage. You also want movement speed in this build, so your main way of getting around is just running, and so movement speed is really good. Magic find is pretty nice. It's obviously a good stat to have, because the more magic find you have, the more likely you are to find better items. But a really big mistake that I see newer players making is to focus on magic find too much. I honestly wouldn't worry about this stat at all, as long as you can get good damage upgrades, because it's always better to clear faster and kill the enemies quicker than to get more magic find. Life, obviously, like I said, you want enough life to feel comfortable. For me, before like the endgame variant of this build, this was like around 4,000. The damage reduction, with my setup, if I pop like my buffs, I have damage reduction cap, 75% for both. This is a nice to have stat, but I wouldn't worry about it. It's for later. Basically, in the earlier progression, I would just worry about getting damage, enough life, and capping your resistances. That's the next thing. Resistances you want to cap at 75%. If you can, that's very important for survivability. And then another very important stat is ignore arcane resistance. This one right here. Now, in the stat tab, it says ignore arcane resistance, but if you look at items, the stat is actually worded differently. For example, if we look at this item here, it says minus 24% to enemy arcane resist. That's the same stat. Or if we look on this item here, it's minus 23% to all enemy resistances. That also applies to arcane, obviously, as well. So you want to get this to 100%. It's a huge damage multiplier. And yeah, try to get this to 100% if you can. You want to get a high amount of magic skill damage, because it's just a multiplier for your damage, since you don't steal magic skill damage. Arcane skill damage you want as well. Faster cast rate, you don't need this stat at all on this build. It doesn't matter. Skill haste is very nice to have. It's by no means a focus stat. It's more like a novelty in the end game. And if an item that's already good has skill haste, that's very nice for you, because what skill haste allows you to do is just basically at some point have 100% uptime on this buff. And that's very good, because it just gives you a lot of movement speed, and it also allows you to get more uptime on Master Mechanic, which is a huge damage multiplier. So skill haste is nice to have, but not necessary. Then we have flat arcane skill damage. This is a very strong stat and a good stat, because it just gives you flat damage on your drones. And now we go into the sentry stats. Sentry skills you obviously want. It boosts the level of gunner drone. Then you also want sentry damage and sentry attack speed, because that just scales your drone. It will deal more damage and attack faster. Obviously, we want that. Sentry amount, very, very, very important stat. This is probably the most important damage stat for the build. So wherever you can get this stat, get it. It's extremely strong. Sentry duration does not matter. It's basically just quality of life. Your drone will basically stay up longer before you need to recast it. But honestly, I don't really notice that at all. Whenever I play, I just click my drone every few seconds. But I guess it's maybe like a small quality of life buff. Now to go over the hero tree. This is what my tree currently looks like. I would say the most important parts of the tree are the charm slots. These are absolutely huge. You need to get them. These will open up your charm game a lot and it will be huge for you. So these are very important. Then obviously we grab the magic skill damage nodes here because it's just extra damage. I only have 2 glyph setups right here. I'm leveling this now, so it's not 7 yet. I don't know why, I was just lazy, I guess. But this is what you want to run. You want to run 1 angel glyph down here to get all the vitality nodes to scale it, because like it says glyph of vitality here, so you need vitality points in the radius of the glyph. This is where I have my angel, and up here I have my loot. Actually, I can drop some points here, but this is where I have my loot glyph. This is very, very important, very strong glyph. This is the only source of increased quantity of loot you can get in the game. Otherwise, you can only scale your loot by magic find, and this is another multiplier for your loot outside of your magic find, so it's very, very strong and very good. And then up here, we just go for the resistances to make it easier to cap your res. Also max res, just nice for tankiness, and if you are in the endgame setup with Lucifer's Crown, it's also a damage multiplier. Up here we just grab attributes because it's nice to have. Here we grab some movement speed, some magic find, and some increased EXP gain. I guess we could also grab these almost. I need 1 more point. I can actually get it here. So, yep, I guess this is the min-max skill tree for my level. But honestly, don't worry about anything up here in the beginning. Just go for the charm slots and make sure you get this, and then get your glyphs going. That should be more than enough in the beginning, and then later on you can go into this and fill out these nodes. I would say the most important of them is probably the all res, but that also depends a little bit on your gear. The movement speed is nice to have as well. Yeah, but basically just pick whatever you want up here, but don't worry about this in the beginning. Just focus on your charm slots and yeah, just go from there. Now let's get into the most exciting part of any character, the gear. I will go through every single gear slot and I will go over different budgeting options so you can find what is within your budget. First off, we will start with low budget items if you are just starting out. Then we will go into mid-game items, and lastly we will go over the absolute end-game items, so the really expensive stuff. But first of all, let's start with the low budget items. For the helmet slot, good options are Witch's Brimmed Hat, Crown of Midnight, and also the rune word Delirium Tremens. These are all very, very, very cheap, very common, or easy to make in the case of Delirium Tremens, and they give you good stats. For the amulet slot, we have Dark Lord Sigil, Engineer's Pendant, and Eye of Horus. All of these give great stats while being extremely cheap and affordable and very common. Also in the cheap tier, I have Shadow Beacon. Now this item will be a bit more expensive than the others, but on the market right now still currently extremely cheap. And this item is super important for the build. I was still using a shadow beacon when I had like 5 trillion DPS. I was still using that amulet because it's really good. Just make sure that you get one with +2 to sentry amount. You always want that stat as much as you can get it anywhere, so make sure to get a high roll on that. It's a little bit more expensive than the others, but you will keep it for a long time, and it's an extremely good upgrade for your build. For the belt slot, we have Gaze of the Void, then Traveler's Belt, and also Rugal's Sash. Rugal's Sash is a bit more rare and a little bit more expensive than the other two options, but it's a great build that will last you for a long time. But if you don't want to spend the money on it right away, just go with one of the other options, depending if you need more offense or more resistances, and you should be good to go. For the chest piece, you can use Angul Auxana or Heaven's Might. Both are great options. There are also many other options that are good in the slot. Just look for any of the stats that I mentioned in the stats section of the video, and you should be good to go. But these two are my favorite of the very cheap options. Now for charms, there is a lot of good charms in the game, and charms are very strong and very valuable. I see a lot of new players undervaluing their charms. Whenever someone new asks me about their gear and what they can upgrade, oftentimes it's their charms that need upgrading badly. So these are very important and very strong, and you can get a lot of very strong charms for extremely cheap. For example, Orange Crayon is an insanely strong charm. I still use it even with my current endgame build. I still use an Orange Crayon because it's just that good. It's insanely strong. That should probably be your #1 priority of the cheap charms. Witch's Claw is a 2-slot charm that is extremely common and costs absolutely nothing but gives you +1 skills, which is really nice. Engineer's Mini Drone is really strong. It gives you a lot of damage, and it's a 4-slot charm, so it's not that easy to fit, but it's very strong. Marksman Quiver is extremely cheap as well, gives you some skills. Then we have Dragon's Heart. This charm is another 4-slot charm. If you want some damage, try to get one that has the execute passive roll to 5. But honestly, I would prioritize this less than the other charms because it's a little bit more expensive. You can get more bang for your buck elsewhere. For example, with Damien's Cage. This charm is insanely good for the build. You get so much arcane skills and arcane damage, intelligence. It's a very good, very strong charm. I highly recommend it for this build. Anubis Ankh charm is also a great option because it just gives you so much life, especially for your earlier stages of this build. This charm is absolutely insane because what it allows you to do is to drop your stat points in vitality and put them into intelligence, and that way you get a lot of damage just by using this charm. And it also makes you very tanky because yeah, it just gives an absurd amount of life. Crow's Feather is a decent charm, especially in the beginning. It's quite nice. And the good thing about this charm is that you get it from one of the early Act 1 quests. I don't remember which one, but it's a very early quest, and so it's completely for free, and you can get it within the first few levels, so very early on, and you can probably keep it for a while. Yeah, it's just nice to have and free. Moonshard is also a good charm if you want to cap your ignore arcane resistance, or if you need to do it. This is a good way to do it. It's quite cheap, and you get some ignore arcane res, which is nice. I wouldn't spend too much on this though, because it's a 4-slot charm, so it takes up some space. And sooner or later you want to drop this because you can get more damage from your charms if you manage to cap your ignore arcane res from your gear. For the glove slot, If you're looking for something extremely cheap, then you could go for the Bone Conjurer's Gloves. If you want something a little bit more expensive, you could go for Shadow Occultist Straps. Those are very strong. And you can also go for Arcanum Asphyxiators. Those will be a little bit more expensive, but they're really good. And if you get ones that have a high roll on the aura of the gloves, then you can use them all the way through the end game, because you will put them on your Merc later on, because the Merc will give you the aura, which gives you increased arcane damage. So if you manage to snipe one off the market for cheap, sometimes they are there with like a max roll aura for a low price, then it's a really good investment, because you will keep them for the entire game. You will swap them out eventually to your Merc, but you will still use them. Now for the weapon slots, I have two options. First is Lone Mystic, which is a rune word item. It's very, very cheap to craft. You just need to look out for a 4-slot sword, one-handed, and then you can craft this rune word. You could also do it on a spellblade, for example, but then you will need to get a workaround. We will talk about this in a second. So you would prefer this to be on a one-handed sword base, but it's a very strong item because it gives you +2 sentry amount, which is an insane stat for this build. So this item is very, very good. Another good option would be Riftmaster Sturge, especially early on if you need to cap your Ignore Arcane resistance. This item is really good. But if you already have your resistance capped, your Ignore resistance, then I would prefer Lone Mystic over the Riftmaster Sturge for sure. Now we get into the rings. First, let's talk about the workaround that I just mentioned with the Lone Mystic Sword. If you have that weapon on a good Spellblade base, for example, then you could use the ring Absence of Constraint to be able to use a Spellblade, even though you are not supposed to, because Marksman is not a class that can usually wield a Spellblade. But yeah, this is more of a temporary solution, but it can be pretty good, especially because Absence of Constraint gives you a lot of damage if you're still early in your gear progression. Another good budget ring that's also extremely cheap is Satanic Eye, because it gives you a lot of resistances. So if you need to fix those, you can do that with the ring slot. Ring of Talus is also a very good budget option. And my favorite of the cheap rings is Kodos Wedding Band. Why? Because this ring gives you all skills. It's really good. It gives you a lot of movement speed, which is very nice for drone, and it also gives you a lot of life, so it makes it easier for you to get to the point where you can drop your stat points in vitality, put them in intelligence, and that will give you a lot of damage. So Kodos basically has everything that you want, especially early on. Now the shield slot is very important, because in the shield slot we have the Shadow Lantern. This item is king. I still use this item, obviously with great rolls and everything, but I still use this item on my Giga Endgame build. This item is the best in slot for your shield, and it's also not that expensive. So this would be one of my first priorities, just like the Shadow Beacon, the amulet, to get on your build. If you get those two items, you already have two extremely good items that give you a lot of good stats for not a high price. So these I would focus on, but if you can't afford the Shadow Lantern yet and you're looking for something else, you could look at the Rift Eye shield, which is quite nice, or you could craft a Sky Song rune word for your shield. Same as for the Shadow Beacon, you really want to look for a Shadow Lantern that has the max roll on Sentry Summon amount. This skill, you want to get it max roll everywhere that you can. It's very important. For boots, there are some nice options. If you are looking at really cheap boots that just give you some movement speed, which is quite nice early on, you could look for the rocket boots. I quite like those in the very early progression because they give you a lot of movement speed, And they also give you the zoom skill, which just gives you an absurd amount of movement speed. You can equip that skill, use it, and get like an insane buff, and you will be extremely fast. So this is very nice to get around. Also, the Hermes boots would be an option for move speed if you're looking for more combat stats and maybe a little bit higher of an investment. You could look at the Paradox Runeward boots or the Fumagina flip-flops. Those are great options as well that will give you more damage and more combat power. Now we will go to the mid-game items. For the amulet, there is basically only one option, and that's the Shadow Beacon, the same amulet that we use in the low budget tier. But in mid-game you can start to look for better rolls on the beacon, maybe get some better unholy rolls. The unholy rolls are always random, it can be any stat. You can also use satanic crystals on the amulet to get an extra mod. And maybe you can even try to 5-star it or 3-star it. Basically, it's the amulet that you use this amulet for a long time, and with your mid-game gear you just want to look for better rolls and try to get more power out of that item. But we will still stay with the Shadow Beacon until we can afford the best in slot amulet. This amulet will carry you very far, and I was using this amulet for a long time. For the belt slot, you can look to get a Girdle of Eternal War with arcane skills. It just gives you some nice damage stat. It also has sockets and it has a nice life roll. Now the chest slot is very strong. You could either go for a Wraith's Cloak, but that's definitely the worst of the two options. You need to make sure to get a Wraith's Cloak that rolls arcane skill damage. This chest armor drops from the Reaper, and it always rolls with a random skill element, so you need to make sure to get one with arcane. But the better option is Arcanist's Wrath. This chest is very strong. It's basically the second best chest that you can get for the Marksman, until you have enough money to afford the high tier best in slot option, but this chest will carry you a very long way. Now for charms, we have a lot of good options that can also get pretty pricey. For example, we have Fulgurite. I would actually prioritize the magic skill damage and the all resistance on this item as the most important stats. A lot of people get baited by the all stats on it, but I think the other stats are more important. This is a very good charm that if you get a really well rolled one, it will last you forever. Next is Soul Collector. These are very cheap now, but it's an extremely strong charm that you will keep all the way until the end game if you get a well rolled one. And it's probably one of the first charms you should buy because it's extremely powerful and it's extremely cheap as well for what it gives you. Another item on the cheaper end for the mid-game setup is Sheep King's Wool. Very strong, good damage stats, and it also gives you minus to enemy res, which is very good if you need to cap your Ignore Arcane. And this item is not too expensive. Same for Traveler's Map Journal. Very strong charm, not too expensive. Gives you resist and move speed, which is very nice to have on a charm. Then we have the Steve charm. Try to get one, obviously, that has at least decent rolls. This is very strong. If you get like 75 to all attributes, that's 75 intelligence, which is huge for your damage. But it also gives you 75 vitality, which gives you more life, which makes it easier to have a good life pool while being able to put all your attribute points in intelligence, which is more damage again. The Tablet of Awakening can be very nice if you get a 4-socket one. I would not recommend less than 4 sockets. You can socket 4 Amrunes, for example, to get 40% to all resistances on the tablet if you need it. I would just use it if you really need to fix your resistances badly and you can't find another way. Then this is very good. Speaking about resistances, Torch of Shadows is an excellent charm. It's very strong. It always rolls a random class, so getting one that has plus to marksman skills might be a little bit more pricey, but to be honest, you could also just buy a very cheap torch for a class that is unpopular and just look for high attributes and especially high resistances rolls, and it's still a strong charm even if you don't get the skills. But obviously later on you want one with +3 to marksman skills and high rolls in general. You will keep this all the way till the end game if you have a well rolled one. Then we also have the Anvil. This is a very strong charm. It gives you +2 skills and all resistances on a 1-slot charm, which is extremely strong, obviously because it doesn't take up a lot of space, but also you will have some 1-slot spots always open on your charms. So for a 1-slot charm, this is by far the best option that you can have. Then we also have large charms, so 2-slot charms with magic % skill damage. These are very strong. I don't think a lot of people are selling these, so it's probably hard to look on the market, but you should put them in your highlight filter so you don't miss them. In the glove slot, we have either well-rolled Arcanum Asphyxiators or the Zealot's Deathbringers. The best thing that you can do is put the Arcanum Asphyxiators with a high aura roll. You want the max roll on the aura if possible on your Merc, so your Merc gives you the aura with increased arcane damage. That's really strong. And then wear the Zealot's Deathbringers as your main gloves on your character. That's the best thing that you can do. If you can't afford the Zealot's Deathbringer gloves yet, just use the Arcanum Asphyxiators. They are very good as well. For the helmet slot, we have quite a few options of varying budget levels. The Curse helmet. Now this helmet in itself is pretty cheap. You just need a good 3-socket base. But the thing that makes it a little bit less cheap is that it always rolls a random skill element. So you really need to hit Arcane. So unless you get really lucky, this helm will probably cost you a lot of attempts of rolling the rune word until you hit Arcane damage. Or rather Arcane skills. But you can roll as much as you want whenever you socket the rune word and you make the rune word curse. After you can just remove the sockets, you will lose the runes that you put in, but then you can put new runes in and just try again. Gaze of the Oblivion is also strong. It drops from Luna, so it's a little bit more expensive, but yeah, it's a very strong item, very strong helm. Grimbone's Visage is very nice, especially if you need the resistances. Maybe free up some other gear slots with the resistances you get from this item. This helm is honestly cracked. Other good options for resistances and good stats on a helmet roll are Harlequin's and Sheep King's Crown. Honestly, I wouldn't value Sheep King's Crown too highly on this build. Unless maybe if you're using Sheep King's Wool as well as in the charms, it can be pretty good. But it's kind of hard to roll because the roll range on the resistances and the sockets is very important. But yeah, it's hard to hit a very good one, and those are obviously gonna be more expensive, but it's still there if you find one, or if you get lucky getting a good one on the market, this is a good option. Then we also have High Roller's Death Crown. This item is obviously insane with the roll ranges. It has crazy roll ranges, but that also means it can be cracked. This one can be very strong. It just depends on how it rolls and what you get on the market. These are the potions that I would use. Try to get a high rolled one. Obviously, a very good one that I still use in the very end game is Sarcaster's Coffee. So this one is a quest reward from early Act 1. Ghostly Potion and Elixir of Death, as well as the vodka, is just good damage stats. Try to get one with +5 and they will last you a very long time. Now for rings, the two best options in my opinion are Signet of Shadows. You need one with arcane skills, this ring rolls a random skill element, so it can come with fire or lightning or arcane or whatever. Obviously you want one with arcane, and this ring can be absolutely insane, but even just a base one with arcane stuff on it will be pretty good. Another very nice and very strong option is the Arcanist ring. This drops from Anubis in Inferno. It has, I think, a 1 in 100 drop chance from Anubis in Inferno, so you can target farm it very easily. For the shield slot, just like the amulet slot, there is only ever one option here, never get anything else. It's the Shadow Lantern. I still use this on my endgame build. You just wanna get one that has good rolls, maybe good unholy stats, maybe you hit a satanic crystal that you get a good mod from. Just to get one, just get one with high rolls and good unholy stats. This item is insane. It's your best in slot shield all the way through endgame. So if you get a really good one, 5-star it for sure and you will keep it forever. For boots, there's basically only one option here, and that's the Grimbones Marchers. It also drops like the Grimbones Helm from the Grimbone boss. These are very strong. Try to get one with good rolls if you can, obviously. But yeah, those boots are insane. I still use them in my endgame setup. If you get one with good rolls, you can star it. Very strong item. Pearlescent Dream are also very strong. They cannot compete with Grimbone, but maybe you can use them to transition into Grimbone, because the good thing about these boots is that, similar to the glove slot with the Arcanum Asphyxiators, these have an aura, and so you can chuck these boots on your Merc, and your Merc will give you the aura, which will give you magic skill damage, which is really nice. For the weapon slot, there are two options in my opinion. Either you find a very good base for the Lone Mystic rune word. This rune word is so cheap, but it's so good, especially if you find a good base for it. One with maybe, I don't know, +5 to all skills or high magic skill damage, or you could theoretically even find something insane like plus to all skills, plus arcane skills, magic skill damage, intelligence, something like that. That would obviously be ridiculous, but you want a good base, and then you can make the rune word. Another very strong option are Glacier Talents. These are honestly probably the best like non-special heroic in the game. These are insane. A lot of builds use them even if you are not cold. Why? Because they have 4 sockets, they have +2 skills, but most importantly they have a ton of int and they have intelligence converted to magic skill damage. The 12% conversion is the most important part, and the better your gear becomes and the more intelligence you have, the better this item will be, because you will get more out of it the more intelligence you have. This is a very strong option. Now we get into the juicy stuff, the best in slot items. These items will be very expensive and you will need to either get an insanely lucky and expensive drop and sell that to be able to afford one of these items, or you will have to farm a lot and play a lot. But these are the best in slot items that are extremely powerful, and you will not find anything better than this for this build. I will talk about the priority of these high-end items, because a lot of people get it wrong, and if you're already investing a huge amount of money into a big item, you want to make sure to get the ones first that are the strongest. For the amulet slot, we have Thought's Agony. This drops from Amun-Ra, the hardest boss in the game, and it's quite insane because it gives you so much intelligence, and intelligence converted to magic skill damage. It also has an empowered socket, and this amulet is absolutely insane, especially if you 5-star it. You get so much stats from it, but I think there is other upgrades that are way more important to get than this. This one I think is kind of low on the list. Yes, it is better than Shadow Beacon, but you kind of need to 5-star it. And at the same time, Shadow Beacon is very, very strong. So you will get an upgrade if you use this amulet, but not by as much as with some of the other item slots. Now for the belt slot, there are actually 2 options here. First of all, there is Liquor Holster. Obviously, as all of the endgame items, very expensive and very strong. But I would say it's less strong than El Patron. But the thing is, Liquor Holster is a lot easier to fit into your build than El Patron. You need to jump through a lot of hoops to fit El Patron into your build, but if you can, it will be better. The reason why Liquor Holster is a lot easier to fit in your build is because it gives you a lot of resistances. You can use Prismatic Potion as soon as you have Liquor Holster. What it does is, it's like Mage Blood from PoE. It just makes your flasks active all the time. You don't need to use them anymore. They are a permanent buff now, and they have increased effect as well. So if you use Prismatic Potion, you get a lot of resistance from this belt, and otherwise it has great stats too, and obviously all your other flasks get buffed too, and you get a lot of damage from that. This belt is absolutely insane and very strong, but if you can fit El Patron, then that one is better. For your chest plate, there's only one option in the end game, and that's Tyrell's chest plate. This one gives you so much HP. You will be very, very tanky if you use this, especially if you get some flow runes to get around the minus to max resistance. But I wouldn't put it high on the priority list unless you already have enough damage to one-shot everything in the game and you feel very comfortable with your DPS. Because this item, while it is also good for damage, it's mainly a defensive option. In the charm slot, we now have an item that is very, very high on the priority list. Probably the first expensive item you should get for your build. And that is an overloaded dice with Gunner Drone subskills. This item is absolutely cracked. It's absolutely insane. As soon as you put this charm, you will get double your DPS instantly. And it's not as expensive as some of the other items right now. For example, I think the overloaded dice, as of recording this video, is like 60 million, round about that, on the market right now. But compared to some of the other items, that's actually pretty cheap, unless you can get a Lucifer's Crown, which we will get into in a second when we get to the helm slot. This is the best item you can get. Another insanely strong charm is Annihilator. This just gives you so much stats, an insane amount of resistance for a 2-slot charm. Absolutely crazy, very strong item. You probably need this if you want to fit Lucifer's Crown. Chaos Gemstone comes with 3 unholy stats. This item can be very good, but a good one can also be very hard to get. But this item can be insane. It can come with a lot of good stats on it. You just need to find the right one. Arcane Pumpkin, very strong item, very strong charm, gives you a lot of DPS. It's just overall a good charm. Monkey's Paw, if you can fit it, it's quite nice, but it's also pretty expensive. This should probably be one of your last upgrades. It's quite rare, so it's quite expensive, but it doesn't give you all that much power. This is more for later on, when you really want to close out your build and kind of min-max it a little bit. Another good option is move speed small charms. These are quite hard to find, but they are very good. They can roll up to 15% move speed for a 1-slot. For gloves, the best in slot option is Atos Diamond Hands. This is insane. It allows your spells to crit basically. And yeah, it's just a very good damage item. I can only recommend this one. This is probably one of the stronger ones of the Angelics that you can get. Yeah, I would get this one pretty soon. Now, the helmet slot is where it gets absolutely crazy. Lucifer's Crown is by far, without a doubt, and it's not even close, the best item in the game. This item got added this season and it's completely overpowered. It's absolutely broken. This item is the best helm for any build in the game by far. Basically what it does is, for each point you have in your resistances, so if you have, let's say, 50% on one resistance, that's 50%. it gives you 1% increased damage per resistance. So that would be, in this case, 50% extra damage. And it's just a huge multiplier for your build. Yeah, you can scale that really high. If you have all resistances at 75%, I think it's, I'm not sure right now, but I think it's 5 different resistances. So you get 5 times 75%. What makes this item even more broken is that if you socket flow runes in your gear, then you get up to 90% max resist on every item. If you put this on and you're at like 200 billion, you will be at 1 trillion to 1.2 trillion. It's that broken. It's insane. And at the same time, you are increasing your resistance by a lot. So if you go for the expensive route with flow runes in your gear, you get to 90% max resistance. You are also super tanky, because obviously 90% max resistance is broken for defense. It's completely nuts. And at the same time, you're scaling your damage. The only downside is that it gives you minus 225 to all resistances. So that's why you need to find a way to get a lot of resistance on your gear to counter this downside. And that's also why in the belt slot I was talking about how Liquor is very good, Liquor holster, because it gives you a lot of resistance. And you always when you wear the Lucy's crown, you want to max out your resistance as much as possible. That's your number one priority. If you have the money to spend and some way to get your resistances to at least 75% at first, then this is the best thing you can buy by far. This item is broken. It's the number one priority, but it's also the most expensive item. So for that reason, you might prioritize the overloaded dice first, because it's also extremely strong, but way more cheaper than Lucy's crown. For potions, we have the prismatic potion. This is only if you use Liquor holster. Otherwise, I would never use this potion. But if you use Liquor holster, this is very strong. We also have the gold inlaid mysterious potion. This is very nice for magic find. I would probably get this quite late into the build, but it's definitely nice to have for sure. For rings, there are 3 options. First is Aaron's. This is a very strong ring. Then we have Rakul's ritual band. This will mirror one of your rings. So if you have a very strong ring like Aaron's, then it's obviously very good to mirror it, because the Rakul's ritual band is way cheaper than an Aaron's ring. So you can get the second one for lower price basically. By far the best ring that you can get is a good Signet of Shadows. This is the one that I got. It's pretty nice, it's pretty good, but it's nowhere near as crazy as they can get. That ring can get absolutely crazy in theory. Obviously, it's like winning the lottery 10 times over to get a perfect one. If I had the best possible Signet of Shadows that I can think of, my DPS would probably go from 10 trillion to 20 trillion or more. This ring is extremely strong if you can get a good one. Shield, best in slot, good old Shadow Lantern. This is probably one of the first items that you will ever buy for your Marksman, and you will use it for the entire game. The endgame version, you are just looking for one with very good rolls, and you want to 5-star it. So you just want to find the best possible one that you can get. There is no other shield that is better than this. For boots, similar to the Shadow Lantern, this is an item you will buy fairly early on, but you will keep it for a long time. It's the Grimbone's Marchers. These are very strong for the drone build. Same deal as with the shield. You just want to get as high rolls as possible, and you want to 5-star it. Whenever I see a new Marksman player going for an angelic item or an expensive upgrade, they always want to grab this item first. And I don't know why. It looks flashy, it has a lot of sentry stuff, but it's actually not that great. It's nice, it's a very strong item, but I would never ever prioritize this over Overloaded Dice, over Lucy's Crown, over Atos Diamond Hands. This item does not compete with those. You also need to 5-star this item for it to be really good. I was using a Lone Mystic on a good base for quite a long time, and when I upgraded to Sentry Blaster without star levels, then the Sentry Blaster only gave me like 10% increased DPS. This item is very strong, especially if you 5-star it, but I would not prioritize it as highly. I would definitely not get this first. This is a very big mistake a lot of Marksman players do. For the Mercenary, I have a very standard Mercenary setup. I'm using the Act 1 Mercenary, basically just as an magic find bot. So any magic find that your Mercenary gets, you get as well. So I'm getting 294% Mercenary magic find. So that's just nice to have. Other than that, I just maxed out his resistances and his damage reduction so he can survive. And for his skill tree, we are just going for anything basically that gives him survivability. That's the only thing I care about. I just want him as a bot basically to buff my magic find, so I just don't want him to die. I don't care about anything else that he does. I just want him to stay alive. So we go life steal, we go dodge chance, we go life replenish, we go damage reduction, and we go armor, just so he stays alive for longer. Now for his items, basically the only thing that you care about is to give him as much magic find as possible, to make him as tanky as possible. And there's also 3 items on him that will buff your damage. We will talk about those in a second. But basically, as you can see, I have Ist runes in every slot that I can, just to boost his magic find. And the 3 items that are important to boost your own damage are these gloves, you want the max level aura. These boots, you want the max level aura. And then the Crown of Doom, which is very strong. It's also a little bit more expensive, but it's very good for sure. It gives you a lot of extremely strong auras. The Baleful aura gives you a lot of magic skill damage, as you can see. There's also Isarius. This item gives your Merc a 5% chance when he's getting hit to cast a buff. That buff will increase your life by almost 60%. With that buff I have 15,000 life, and it's very easy to proc, so this is also a good Merc item. But yeah, basically just use whatever you have for your Merc, magic find, tankiness, buffing items with auras like this, and you should be good to go. Of course, we are using Lucy with 5-star, 5 sockets, so 1 extra socket from Corrupt, and 5 flow runes. We use a Thoughts, 5-star, 1 extra socket, Shadow Lantern. Then the Tyrells, I'm using Drunkard Mayhem as the augment. The augment is not that important on Marksman, but this just makes you extremely tanky. For damage options, you don't really have great choices, so this is what I use. Sentry Blasters, 5-star, extra socket. Atos, pretty much perfect rolls, extra socket. Signet of Shadows. El Patrons. Aarons. Grimbone's Marchers. Then these are the potions that I use. And for the charms, we use Torch of Shadows. Of course, we use the overloaded dice for Gunner Drone, Arcane Pumpkin, Soul Collector, Anvil, small move speed charm, large charm with magic skill damage, Ani, Fulgurite, Chaos Gemstone with minus to enemy arcane resistance. I need this on my current setup to cap my Ignore Arcane. Crayon, of course, and Tablet to fix my res, to be able to fit El Patron without having to use Thicker Holster. This is a lot more damage, but it's kind of tough to do. As you can see, I have extra resistance here. I have a lot of extra sockets with runes, and yeah, I'm using the tablet, of course, but I made it work, and this is the best setup that I have found. The goal with this setup is to be as tanky as possible, basically just be unkillable, have extremely high DPS, and be as fast as possible, so you have a lot of movement speed. And I tried a lot of different things, and this is what I found that works best. For the relics, we have Arcane Globe, Bonsai Tree. Bonsai Tree I would probably get last, but it's very nice to get skill haste for your buffs, to have more uptime on them. But this one, if you don't have the extra relic slot from the quest, then you should drop the bonsai tree and go for Arcane Globe, Orb of Chaos, Amputation Kit, and Rock Belt. This setup gives you good stats and also a bunch of movement speed from those two, which is nice to get around. In order to unlock your last relic slot, you will need to do the wanted quests in Act 5. And then after those wanted quests, you will get a quest to kill Gabriel and to kill Amun-Ra. And once you kill those two, that's when you get your 5th relic slot. And then to get your 3rd charm slot, 2 are from the hero tree, and the 3rd one after you defeat Amun-Ra and Gabriel and unlock your relic slot. Then you will get a quest in Inferno to kill all the act bosses, and once you do that, then you get the last relic slot. If you made it all the way through this video, I have one more thing to announce, and that is that I will give away some items. So around 2 or 3 days after this video releases, I will pick a few commenters on this video, and I will give away some Marksman items. I have some here that I've been saving up, but I will also buy some more. So if you are looking for some gear that you can use yourself, or maybe you just want to sell it off, just leave a comment down below and tell me that you want some Marksman items, and I will pick a few winners after 2 or 3 days of this video's release. So thank you very much for watching. I hope this guide helped you out. I saw a lot of people asking Marksman questions over the last few weeks or so, and there wasn't really another good source for information like this, so I figured I'd just make it myself. And yeah, I hope this video helped you out. Thank you for watching and have a great day. Also, if you have any questions about the build, please let me know, write a comment down below and I will answer it.